Good morning, everyone. It is a great pleasure and honor to officially open the 30th Annual Ann Ferren Conference on Teaching, Research, and Learning. So welcome, everyone. I'm extremely happy to welcome all of you on this cold morning for a great day of learning, reconnecting, and for kickstarting your spring semester. As I mentioned, this is the 30th year of the Ann Ferren Conference, an anniversary that is marked with a pearl. And as a marine biologist, I think this is an auspicious coincidence that my first Ann Ferren Conference as an executive director is the pearl anniversary. The fact that this is the 30th anniversary is a real testament to our commitment, to our roles as teachers, as scholars, and as members of a thriving university community here at American University. The theme of this year's conference is President Burwell's challenge for us to be the University of and, not or, that is for us to be excellent scholars and teachers. In store for you today are 30 sessions led by faculty and staff on topics ranging from teaching ethical reasoning to community-based research to faculty learning communities. And we will have two honored guests. President Burwell and Ann Ferren herself, exploring the scholar-teacher ideal during the plenary sessions. Over the course of the day, please share with us your thoughts and questions about the scholar-teacher ideal by email or tweet using the hashtag AUScholarTeacher. And you will see out in the lobby area, there's a live feed of those tweets. This conference could not happen without all of you, so thank you for taking the time out from a very busy schedule, I'm sure, to reflect on, share, and learn more about how to be better teachers and scholars. I also want to thank the people who were instrumental in making this event possible. First, I want to thank the CTRL faculty fellows. In addition to developing and running CTRL events throughout the year, the fellows reviewed all of the session proposals and helped shape today's conference. If there are any faculty fellows in the audience, please stand up to be recognized. I know Sarah is here. Fellows, come on, don't be shy. Bridget. Second, I want to thank the Office of Sustainability for making the Ann Ferren Conference Zero Waste event. This means that we are reusing or recycling all of the materials used for the conference, and you can help in several ways. One, put your food waste in the compost bin. Second, at the end of the conference, you can turn your tags in near some of the registration tables, and in fact, your name tags will be used as raffle tickets for prizes at the dessert reception, right? And so hopefully we'll use those name tags again, not the actual names, but the little pockets. Although you're welcome to come back. And of course, you can recycle your programs and any of the paperwork that you pick up throughout the day. There are recycling bins throughout this facility. Third, I want to express my deep appreciation for the CTRL team. Being surrounded by such wonderfully talented and dedicated group is a real perk of my job. Please join me in thanking the CTRL team for today's conference and for all of the work throughout the year to help us become better scholars and teachers. Are there any CTRL team members? Dan is back there, so thank you. Alexis. Finally, I want to thank Mary Clark, who gave me the opportunity to lead the CTRL. It has been an honor and a welcome challenge, and I'm grateful for her support. So it is with great pleasure that I introduce Mary Clark, who is concurrently the Interim Provost and Dean of Academic Affairs, which I believe is a first for American University.
Business cards. I have to keep reprinting those business cards. Anyway, thank you all for joining us this morning. It's a real delight to welcome you here this morning for our 30th anniversary conference. Very exciting. And congratulations on the start of the new semester. I hope you had a restful break and really delighted to see you here this morning. Before I continue with my introductory remarks, I wanted to recognize the chair of our Board of Trustees, Jack Cassell, and thank him for joining us this morning. I'd also like to recognize Dan Myers, our new provost. Thank you, who has very thoughtfully joined us early. He begins on Tuesday, and I invited him to join us at the Ferren, and he made the long trip out from Wisconsin, so thank you. We're just very excited about working with you and delighted to be working with you, so thank you. And now it is my great privilege and honor to introduce our morning keynote speaker, and that is the one and only Anne Ferren, for whom the conference is named. Anne, we're just delighted to have you here with us this morning. Anne's service to American University is long and distinguished. She has led the university in curriculum development, pedagogical development. She has played a number of roles here at the university that you may be familiar with: as Associate Dean of Faculty, Director of General Education, Vice Provost for Academic Development, and as Interim Provost. Anne is a graduate of Radcliffe College. She has a master's degree in teaching from Harvard University and a PhD in education from Boston University. In 1990, we were lucky to have Anne serve as one of two keynoters at what was then a relatively small conference called Teaching to Make a Difference, sponsored by our Faculty Senate's Faculty Development Committee. To recognize Anne's contributions and commitment, AU renamed the conference in honor of Dr. Ferren, and the event has only grown in significance and attendance since then. We expect somewhere between 420 and 450 attendees at today's event. That's half the full-time faculty. Thank you for being with us, Anne, and it is a pleasure to turn the podium over to you. Thank you.
So I've been asked to speak about this concept of the teacher-scholar in the context of higher education today. And I have to say, for all the years that I have been around colleges and universities, there has been sort of a debate over what the relative importance is. And so I'm glad to see that now it's going to be an and, not a versus. But the questions are often asked. Can you be a good teacher if you're not a good scholar? Should the faculty be held to the same standards no matter what their discipline, what their rank, what their appointment type is? Is a research-intensive university more important than a teaching institution? You get the idea. Lots of questions, and I think you will find as you talk about this throughout this conference and throughout the year, there is much to learn about your own place in it. One of the things that I note, though, is that, and I will probably sort of the spoiler alert, I'm going to argue that this concept of the teacher and scholar will probably remain elusive because the academy is always changing. As Yogi Berra is quoted as saying, the future is not what it used to be. Now, anybody out there who wants to look that up with your cell phone will find that there are several other people that quote is attributed to, and then I will note that you will have in your hand the most disruptive influence on higher education today, which is technology. And as a quick illustration, it gives me a chance to thank you for associating my name with this conference, because nothing I have ever done has brought as much notoriety as this, as much publicity, all thanks to Google and YouTube. If anybody wants to know about me, they just look that up, and there I am. So I want to start first, if you will indulge me, with a few sort of comments about how I think we got here and some personal history, and then some comments about the particular topic at hand. When I finished my doctorate, I actually had no intention of getting an academic job. I had small children. I had gone to graduate school as something to do in the hours when I was not sitting on the edge of the sandbox. It seemed like an acceptable hobby. I'd been a teacher and I liked learning. My dissertation advisor, however, said, whatever you do, write at least one thing a year, and then people will at least think you're serious. So that was my first introduction to the idea that I was not just a teacher, but I would be expected now to be a scholar. Of course, in today's labor market, that publication, one a year, looks pretty skimpy. We have very high expectations. Before I could make any headway, though, on even building a resume with one a year, I began to get calls about adjunct teaching positions. My dissertation advisor had told people that I had relocated from Boston to DC and I might be available. People often ask me, how did you happen to come to AU? And I wish I had a better story, but it was because it had the best parking lot, which now has beautiful buildings on it. So in 1971, I came to fill in for a faculty member who was ill, who had not yet met the class. It was 4 weeks into the semester. The students were getting pretty riled because they needed this methods course before they could go out and student teach. And they were scared, and when I went into the classroom, they were not even sitting down. They were standing around grumbling, and I heard this voice say, "This had better be good." Now, I had started my career as a history and economics teacher in something called terminal education. So I knew a little bit about tough audiences, but I certainly did not have any idea of how you would define good. So one of the first comments I'll make to you is that establishing standards is one of the challenges when you talk about teaching and scholarship. Well, for the next several years, I was an adjunct here and consulting around DC. Interestingly, most of the contacts for those consulting opportunities came from the graduate students in my classes. So I think I was an example of reverse mentoring. They were trying to help me get a toehold in a career. Without a formal support system, though, or institutional expectations, I was not destined to become a distinguished scholar. Individual motivation is necessary, but it is not sufficient. So your discussions will also need to attend to what are the institutional conditions and the incentives that support high-quality teaching and scholarship. Now, this teaching conference actually does have its roots in my time as an adjunct and my experiences, because early on, if I heard a faculty member concerned about a class or trying to decide what to do with a student that dominated the conversation, I gave advice. I was a teacher. I knew. Actually, when you teach high school, you do know a lot about how to manage classes. And one of the deans asked me to help some graduate students who were going to teach for the first time. And soon I found myself giving workshops for people who wanted to just know more about teaching. And folks like Neil Kerwin and Jim Thurber, people you know, would come and share their best ideas. When the College of Arts and Sciences received a big grant for faculty development, I was asked to come into the dean's office and run that project. That grant released so much energy and so many ideas, we did not even need to spend all the money. I have no idea, Peter, whether you still have any of it. Because I think we invested it as an endowment, because it really just, it released, it wasn't the money that made the difference. We arranged class visits, we redesigned the teaching evaluation form, we held sabbatical prep workshops, we sent out a monthly newsletter, we offered research methodology workshops. It was very much the faculty-to-faculty model, which you have kept and which is so nourishing to this community. I can still remember some of the really pithy advice that faculty would share. Alan Kraut, for example, was urging the junior faculty to stop worrying about what AU wants. Instead, he said, do what you care about, do what you're interested in with all the energy that you can give it. If you are rewarded with tenure, that's great, but more important, you will lead a really wonderful intellectual life. And that, I think, is the heart of what the teacher and scholar model is about. Of course, in today's 24/7 connected world, the self-managed and somewhat solitary academic life is no longer possible. Indeed, I believe one of the most serious challenges faculty face is not achieving the teaching research balance, but maintaining work-life balance. When Milton Greenberg asked me to become Associate Dean of Faculty, faculty development finally had a real place in the university landscape. CTRL was not anybody's mind at that point, but anybody who remembers Jack Child knows that he knew how to move that idea forward. One of the best things about the activities, the faculty development activities, was the ripple effect. As faculty across campus got to know each other, they formed different kinds of connections. It led to interdisciplinary research, team teaching, and even a couple of marriages. Breaking down boundaries made possible the development of the general education program that was ahead of its time in both structure and content. Think how progressive it was in 1986 to integrate race, class, gender, and culture across the curriculum, and to include courses such as the Arab world, African literature, and women's voices. Today, every campus uses language such as inclusive excellence, social justice, and global awareness. Yet I have to say, despite years of commitment, I know we all struggle every day to make equity and civility more than just words. I think it's worth noting that what made that program, that general education program, special was the cutting-edge scholarship of the faculty, because they pushed the traditional disciplinary boundaries, and it made the program dynamic and contemporary enough to last for many years. You know, it's typical for faculty to write a book and then think they can design a course based on that, based on their scholarship. In the heady days of creating that new program, faculty took risks and designed courses that were quite different from what their scholarly backgrounds were, and in the end, wrote books based on those courses. Roger Streetmatter, Jim Gerard, Bob Gregg, you know some of them. Jim Gerard was particularly masterful because he got his students to do the research and write the cases that became the basis for his very popular inquiry-based environmental chemistry text. So it's just more evidence of how teaching and scholarship are intertwined, and I know you have several sessions today that will address that. That general education program caught the attention of the Association of American Colleges and Universities, and they asked me to come and share what we had done at a conference. That started for me 25 years of teaching summer institutes on general education reform. It's surprising to me how many things people are trying to do that come back year after year, again and again. And I even have met the Marquette faculty of your new provost at some of those institutes. But AAC knew the best thing about it. It's had me writing monographs, involved in projects, but it's made me part of a national and now global conversation about higher education. What's changing, what's different, its purposes, its practices, its strengths, and its failings. So what have I learned that has some usefulness perhaps as you try to define this teacher-scholar for a changing academy? I hope I don't step on any toes when I say this. First of all, I think you need to clarify your purpose. Why do you want to have this definition of the teacher and scholar? Is it to establish hardline standards of up or out? Is it to nourish all faculty and provide guidance? Is the reputation of the institution established by the work of a few or the cumulative work of many? As you can imagine, this ideal of the teacher-scholar looks quite different from the individual point of view than it does from the institutional point of view. If the purpose of defining the ideal is merely instrumental, as it is on some campuses, to get more attention, more grant dollars, to raise their national ranking. I'm on the board right now of a university that is trying to just raise its national ranking. What you risk is that faculty maybe feel that they are used for a purpose that is not their own internal purpose. The demands on faculty time and talents are increasing on every campus, and we have plenty of research that shows us that faculty experience significant stress if there's a discrepancy between the expectations of the institution and their own sense of their capacity and motivation and training that will help them to meet those expectations. Thus, I encourage you to make your conversations realistic, transparent in intent, and with no hidden agendas. Because ultimately, I think this definition should be energizing and flexible enough to embrace all of the faculty on the campus. And please remember the old adage, Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. My second suggestion is make a plan. What would it take to stimulate high performance and deep commitment to both teaching and scholarship among all faculty at all stages in their careers? Obviously, mere exhortation to do more, do better, be innovative has limited impact. I've been involved in numerous planning exercises, and some of you have too. And too often, after engaging all the stakeholders, setting the goals, identifying the strategies, focusing on the measures of success, we forget that there are two more really important steps: remove the barriers and provide adequate resources. Your planning will require lots of conversation about what is working now, but what is getting in the way of achieving the ideal. You may find that some of the actions that you take inadvertently create barriers. Those of you who have been around a while, and I look and I see very few gray heads in this wonderfully new group of faculty here, but Tony will remember the days when we declared centers of excellence and we privileged certain programs over others, arguing that it was important to invest in the best. Today's version of that on many campuses is STEM over the humanities, funded research over other forms of scholarship. As priorities change, if it's not handled well, the result can create hard feelings and division and make faculty feel left out as the rich get richer. This concept that you have of inclusive excellence for students is just as important to apply to the life of faculty on a campus. Many campuses today, in fact, are reporting a debilitating loss of community and loyalty. We all can say we regret that some of the wonderful things about the Academy are no longer. It's time also to embrace some of the wonderful new things. But one of the things that we have done is we have told research-active faculty, don't join committees, it will waste your time, and then they don't meet any other colleagues on campus who could be helpful to them, or to stay home and do their work, and then they don't have time with students. And facing limited resources, campuses are giving their general education courses over to graduate students or adjunct faculty, or they are putting them into online courses, large lectures, without considering that any savings they might have, if those are cost containment ideas, may actually cost them in terms of attrition. Obviously, there will never be enough money for all the great ideas that faculty have. But honestly, I would rather it be that way than the other way around. Who would want to have more money and no good ideas? So, when I was the interim provost, I have to say it was a time when I was managing, we will call it budget reallocation. It was actually shrinking the budgets. And the faculty joke was they want us to do more with less, and soon we will be doing everything with nothing. Clearly, it's hard to be enthusiastic and committed if reallocation and cost cutting are lurking in the background. But fortunately, dollars and time are not the only resources that we have to give for faculty work. I don't know a single faculty member who does not wish for more feedback and more appreciation. Despite change, indeed disruption in favor of new ways to educate, new ways to interact with each other, the Academy should not become a lonely place lacking in authentic connection. Many of your sessions today focus on how to strengthen relations with students, recognizing that their needs are increasingly complex. I think we can give the same attention to faculty. Now, I know that calls for a degree of humility and openness that is uncharacteristic of faculty. But this is your day when you can actually share some of the things about what you need. You are not the know-it-alls. You are not totally confident. It is an opportunity for learning. And as you move forward with your concept of the teacher and scholar, think of all the ways that you can show appreciation for that work, because who and what gets attention reveals the priorities of the institution. My third suggestion is to examine your assumptions. Over time, in some unspoken way, universities establish norms, revise rules without fully examining the underlying assumptions. Years ago, scholarship was framed by disciplinary boundaries, traditional methodologies, and standards of peer review. But who can remember why joint authored work was deemed less important than single authored work? Now we see the power and the importance of collaboration and joint work. Similarly, who set the expectation that faculty should publish in their primary fields, such as history or political science, and leave their interest in those marginal areas like gender studies until their position was secure? I can remember arguments over who should be the first author, the second, or the third author on scientific papers, always relegating to last place the methodologist, saying, well, that was just crunching numbers. And now we have a high regard for sophisticated research designs, large-scale studies, mixed methodologies, quantitative analysis. Our newest challenge, I think, is what does peer review mean in the age of the internet? The proliferation of journals, online publishing options, blogs, TED Talks, you name it, calls for real clarification of what are our standards, how do we measure what we think is quality work. I think we're not even sure who owns course syllabi anymore. When you can access them online, you can find teaching materials, you can adapt them to your own uses. They're claimed by others, which is always a shock when you see your course has morphed into something else with someone else's name on it. So as you take a fresh look at your assumptions about scholarship, adjust to these new realities, I think you will conclude, though, that some norms should never change. Innovation, impact, and integrity are still the gold standard. I think rethinking assumptions about teaching and learning is also complicated, but I confess I'm a little dismayed that we may not have made as much change as we think in our pedagogies. Our classrooms certainly are much more student-centered, learning is more experiential, but we seem to keep discovering inquiry, high-impact assignments, regular feedback, and group learning as though they are completely new ideas. Fortunately, what we have to help us now is a great deal of research on how the brain works and what deep learning means that can guide us as we test our assumptions. What are the best pedagogies in this dynamic environment of technology, which drives our students to hit or miss on information when we would like them to be more reflective? Is there still a role for lectures, multiple choice exams, memorizing dates and formulas? How do we help students navigate in a world of alternative facts or cut through the noise to think critically about seemingly intractable problems such as immigration and climate change? Just getting students to focus is a challenge as they can contend with issues such as food insecurity and overt racism that has dramatically changed the learning environment on our campuses. At the same time, we have wonderful energy in our students. They are more active than ever, volunteering, interning, gardening, traveling, starting their own businesses. But clearly, activity alone does not equal learning, just as taking 120 credits does not equal an education. Faculty in their roles as mentors and guides provide this wonderful environment that encourages students to take time to reflect and make sense of the whole of their academic experience. This is the model, I think, for quality teaching, to help our students integrate their intellectual and social and personal life, to connect classroom problem solving to ideas about community empowerment, and to make the transition from campus to career with a whole portfolio of skills and capacities that they will need for this fractious and unpredictable world. Your sessions today recognize those critical capacities. They include things such as effective communication, self-assessment, critical thinking, intercultural competence, and ethics. But what pedagogies enable us to go beyond these tangible outcomes and ensure that we as individuals, students and faculty, and as an academic community, have the internal resilience at this unprecedented time in our history to preserve and elevate democratic values, including empathy, respect, and cooperation. My ideal of the teacher and scholar is one who has the courage and the commitment to shape a better future on those ideals. A concluding thought, I want to note that when the faculty first suggested this January teaching conference, there was no expectation that it would be successful or there would ever be another one. The goal was simply to celebrate teaching and make it more public. Over the years, I can see that it has grown in importance as a space to introduce new ideas, pedagogies, and technologies that are dramatically reshaping how faculty and students can and do their work. As American University continues to change and adapt, this commitment to a shared sense of purpose will support the vibrant, self-regarding, generous, inclusive, and productive community that is necessary for all faculty to thrive as teachers and scholars. I'm delighted to be here today and glad that it is not a memorial conference. As some,
Thank you, Ann, for sharing your wonderful insights and also for your continued support of CTRL and American University. Before I close the morning plenary, I want to remind all of you to come back here as quickly as possible after the morning session. This place is going to be a happening place, and the seats will fill up very, very quickly. If the seats are filled, we have overflow space in the MGC Tavern. And so you can make your way there to have your lunch and also to view the afternoon plenary. So thank you again. Welcome back to the 30th anniversary Ferren Conference. Enjoy your morning sessions, and I will see you at 12:30 here. Thank you.